in the Middle East a long time ago. So deen, meaning it comes from the word meaning justice or system of justice, is an example of one of the words which is referred to, which is used to describe aspects of the Sabi faith. And the deen, the system of justice, was established by Noah according to the system, which is exactly what we know. This is because we're Noahites. We keep that tradition. And that we have Shahada. Shahada is a declaration of faith. The Shahada is the same one you heard me say at the beginning of this video, La ilaha illallah. There is no God but the Divine Father. And that is the indication of the oneness, the Tawheed. It's another word which is used in the monotheism of the Baptists. The Baptists were pure monotheists. They had Tawheed, they had monotheism. And the declaration of their monotheism, according to the Arabic sources, was La ilaha illallah. There is no God but the Divine Father. And another aspect of the Sabian faith is that they say it's difficult for them to identify exactly what we are. We seem to be somewhere between Christians and Jews and even Persians, Magians, they say, they use the word Magi. So we seem to be somewhere between the Magi, between the Christians and between the Jews. This is the Sabians. They can't actually identify exactly what we are, but somehow we have characteristics of all three groups, which is a fair enough description as well. So we get a lot of ideas clearly laid out from the Islamic sources, and we get a lot of at least the lineage of the history laid out from the European sources. So between the European sources and the Islamic sources, we are really able to construct a very strong and solid history for the independent Baptist community, or the Messianic Noahide community is the best word to describe it in all honesty, all the way back to the 1st century with the Ebionites, specifically, again, that kind of Ebionite called the Ebionite Gnostics, the ones who believe and follow this divine messenger angel who has come down from heaven and who has guided us into truth and enlightenment. And when you look into the Arabic sources, again, you find references not just to the Khazars, who are famous for having converted to this Noahide Judaic faith overnight, but another community, another kingdom in Himyar, which did the same thing. And we get even more history about the independent Baptists from Himyar inscriptions, where we learn that one of the names for our messianic angel who guides us into it guides us back home, essentially, to where we come from. Their name for that messianic angel is Muhammad. This is Judeo-Arabic. It doesn't refer to a prophet of Arabia, because these inscriptions are hundreds of years before Islam began. There's no prophet in Arabia in our tradition, but Muhammad refers to an angelic being, the Rasul. Rasul not being a name for a human being, but a term for God's primary messenger, what we call in Hebrew also known as netiot, as opposed to nifradim. In Arabic, we have Rasul, or Rusul for plural form, is equivalent to the Hebrew netiot. And we also have Malaikat, which is equivalent to the Hebrew nifradim. So there are two kinds of angel. Malaikat is also being the Malachim being the Hebrew term. It's equivalent to the Hebrew term. But when we talk about Malachim in Hebrew, it has two categories. You can either be Nifradim or Netiot. And the Netiot category is what is referred to in Arabic as the Rasul. The Netiot category has a name. It's called Sar HaPanim. Netiot is a plural word, but it refers to minimum three. And all we know is those three. Sar HaPanim is actually 3 in 1. So hence we get a concept of Trinity. The 3 in 1 there being associated with Moses, Elijah, and Samuel. There are characteristics. There's this kind of a guardian angel spirit, if you like, a guardian angel of Moses, a guardian angel of Elijah, and a guardian angel of Samuel. And the guardian angel of Samuel is understood to have actually been Jesus Christ, Jesus of Nazareth. He appeared as Jesus Christ. Hence, when Jesus goes up to the mountain, to Mount Tabor, he is transfigured, and his disciples see Moses and Elijah standing with him, or rather, the guardian spirit of Moses and the guardian spirit of Elijah, because this Netiot Rasul is 3 in 1. One aspect is what the disciples see as Jesus. The other aspect they didn't see until he was transfigured, and then they saw his tripartite nature, the three elements in him. And this is the sort of stuff which modern churches are not very comfortable with. They don't like all this sort of Kabbalic information, which they refer to as Gnostic. They sort of dismiss Kabbalah as Gnosticism. And they have tried very, very hard to attack Baptist beliefs, traditional ancient Baptist beliefs, and make Baptists afraid of the things which actually define them. But when you take all of this away from a Baptist becomes nothing more than a Presbyterian. That's basically what it becomes. A Baptist, if you take away their history, if you take away the knowledge of being a Tzabi, all that's left now is that you are left with either Luther or Calvin. And many of them become Calvinists. But Baptists existed long before Calvin, and Calvin never had anything to do with the Baptists. Baptist history is more ancient and more tied to Semitic culture, in fact. It's a terrible thing to think today that there are people who call themselves Baptists who are anti-Semitic. They are actually people who have a phobia, Islamophobia and anti-Semitism, and they are afraid of their Semitic origins, the Semitic origin of their faith, because they don't even know about it, because it has been stolen from them. So hopefully on this channel we can restore knowledge about that. Now, the Islamic Quran is possible to be read in an entirely Baptist reading. Baptist reading, of course, using Judeo-Arabic, not the Quraysh dialect of Arabic, which modern Arabs use to interpret the Quran. The tafsir is always in the Quraysh dialect, but our tafsir of the Islamic Quran would be with Judeo-Arabic and a Baptist or a Tsabi interpretation. In this case, we see things which are very different, and I hope to show some examples on this channel in the future concerning passages from the Islamic Quran, which would be extremely different. An example, which I can give here just to sort of whet your appetite if you are not familiar already, would be phrases in the Quran where it says, the Islamic Quran, where it says, Inna yakun luhu walid, which means literally in Judeo-Arabic, indeed God has a son. Okay, indeed he has a son. Okay, indeed to him is a son. But the modern Quraysh interpretation of this phrase, even though they'll say yes, it does technically mean that word for word, but the Quraysh interpretation means no, he doesn't have a son. Exact opposite of what the Baptist Judeo-Arabic interpretation of the Quranic verse would be. So we can't say that we are Muslims, Islamic in the sense that Muslims are, because they have a homogenous community and they believe things in a particular way with a particular system of hadith science, which is inherited from the Abbasids, and we have none of that. What we have very simply is a continuity, a historical context of the Judeo-Christian faith. And in that Judeo-Christian sort of context, we will read the Islamic Quran with the Judeo-Christian Arabic understandings, not with anything which has come after that. We'll be looking at it with the 7th century understandings. We get a very different view of things. Now, although I've just talked for the last almost half an hour about the independent Baptist history, I stopped at the 1st century with the Sobiite, the Sabians, and we could go further, of course, and look at the Ebionites, which basically means the poor, and this is quite interesting because the word Ebionite, meaning poor, is one of the names which was given to the Waldensians, the poor of Lyon, for example. So they were also Ebionites. So really, we are Ebionites. We're Ebionite Gnostics, going all the way throughout time, with different names being applied to us depending on which church historian is writing about us or which Islamic historian is writing about us. But we are simply in our original ancient language, Sabi, Baptists. But the word Sabi also has another meaning. It also means soldier, soldiers of Christ, or if you like, we are the Salvation Army, the original Salvation Army, before the Salvation Army existed. We are the soldiers of Christ. We are the soldiers of the Messiah. And we also have a long history of being essentially mercenaries who were supporting David, for example, and Solomon throughout biblical history. The history goes all the way back for about 4,000 or 5,000 years BC. The history goes all the way back to the origin of our movement, of the monotheistic